and a major city yet to be determined in Russia.
Travis Wayne Goodsell, back from the run. I think I may have caused a car theft to relocate. That's what they do in Utah, is police are on to the chop shops, so instead of taking stolen vehicles to a chop shop to get money, they strip it for parts and then abandon the vehicle somewhere else. So with the objection that I filed against the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, with their the judge's report, I brought up Kompromat, which is a Russian word, similar from what we get the word compromise. And that's been used in our country as a misinformation separation divisive tool, where people in marriage relationships or in business relationships or even social relationships are taught that, oh, we must compromise to come to an agreement. Both sides have to compromise until we can agree on something. And no, Mr. Seven Habits showed us that no, you're not. There's no need for compromise. You have to reevaluate what it is you really want and make it so that both sides get what they want. There's some errors in his Seven Habits, but nonetheless, there is an element of truth to it. But rather than going into that, I pointed out in the objection that there are two types of kompromat that Russians use. One of them is complicit kompromat. That's where both sides agree to be co-conspirators and commit crimes together and bribe each other and reciprocate and quid pro quo and all that stuff. Both willingly are in active involvement. The other is where the Russians see you as a goody two-shoes, adamant, and they instead have to create kompromat because they can't get you to be complicit in criminal activity. So if you don't go to their honey trap, letting the prostitute in your home as the video camera surveillance is rolling, if you don't take a bribe, those types of things, then they have to manufacture something. And with technology that we have today, they've got Photoshop, they have this deep fake video thing now that they've got in operation, especially in use with I can't remember what it's called. It's using your facial recognition. When you mix deep fakes with facial recognition systems, I mean, you've got a whole bunch of problems coming. And documents, those are easy to fake now in a digital age as well. And so people are able to be set up for being involved in criminal activity so that the powers that be can control you. And if you don't conform and comply, they bring up the kompromat, you get busted, you go down, they remain in power. And that's how the two types of kompromat work. So when the airport director for Salt Lake was coincidentally removed from his post as Herbert was opening the Salt Lake City airport for business, that raised a whole bunch of red flags for me, and I was concerned. The timing and all this with my lawsuit as well. Is this to help the church flee the country? And I've been watching, and still to this day, I mean, this was back in, I think, May 15th, wasn't it? June, July. What happened to them? Those of us who've been arrested, we know that the only way to not go before a judge is to be put in isolation. And that's the only explanation as to why the news has no longer been covering his case. He's just disappeared. He's not gone before a judge to plead. He's not gone to be assigned a lawyer if he hasn't been assigned one from his own money. He's just disappeared. And I know why. When months go by with no follow-up in the courts, you know exactly what happened to him. And it's therefore clear that he was set up. He was not involved in child porn on his computer. They set him up. Because otherwise, it would be an open and shut case. We got you, you're busted, we're going to prosecute you, and you're going to be locked away for the rest of your life and put on the child sex offender registry. If they got him, they got him. There's no reason to delay when you win. You only delay when you're the losing side. And it's very clear what happened to him. So when Nelson, in his very first April General Conference as President of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and announces a temple yet to be determined in a major city in Russia, the Mormon audience, you can hear them going, "Ah, yay, woo, Mormonism, yay, conquer the world." I was like, uh-oh. Oh, crap. Because I had just begun researching LDS church history. I had just begun to find out that Joseph Smith was murdered with an inside job. I had just begun investigating the branch-offs involving Freemasonry and the difference between York and Scottish Rites, and the threat to America with William Morgan, and so finding out about Russia and the church, I knew something was up. And on my old channel, you can see updates to my investigations as Mitt Romney gets involved, Marriott gets involved, Mr. Magic Underwear on a documentary, Marriott. And so, as I'm filing this lawsuit now, it's clear that the church is corrupt. The question I was still not quite 100% sure on is whether or not Nelson got himself involved in creative or manufactured kompromat, or whether he was complicit in it. And as I found out, thanks to the whistleblower, the church has liquid assets of trillions of dollars. Then they have the real estate assets on top of that. So with trillions of dollars, they control people. They dominate. Under a slave economy system, which is what the world is involved in, it's not capitalism, it's a front. If it were true capitalism, we wouldn't have Amazon, we wouldn't have Walmart, we wouldn't have the big box stores. It would just be the mom and pop stores selling the inventions of the mom and pops, to put it like that. So like dull fruit juice, concentrated juices, the bottled juices, that would be what they would sell. You'd have a Dole store where you go and buy your fruit juice. Disney, they've done it right. They don't want other people messing with them, renting their movies at Blockbuster and stuff like that. They had their own store. And then when the internet came along, they had their own store online. Other people are beginning to implement that, but when you're in competition with other people selling the same products, the winner survives and becomes the monopoly, which can create problems. But that's what big box stores are doing, are creating monopolies. So Amazon is the online monopoly. Walmart was becoming the store monopoly. And then Amazon came along and finally took a big chunk out of Walmart. And so when the church is exposed as having trillions of dollars, which means they are in a position of power. They may not have military force, they may not be gun runners to have access to guns and weapons and all this stuff, but they have the money to buy protection. And so it's clear that with Russia, the church is complicit in their kompromat with Russia. And whether the church went to Russia to say, hey, we want you to destroy America so that you can do us a favor, or whether Russia came saying, hey, you guys want Deseret back, right? How about I do you a favor if you do me a favor? And I'm not quite sure which is the one yet, but I do know that the church is complicit in their kompromat with Russia. And so if you're unfamiliar with how Russia is destroying America, remember back in the 2016 election? I'd rather be Russian than vote Democrat. They had t-shirts printed out of it. That was Russian propaganda. And Americans fell for it. And so if you aren't familiar with coronavirus, it takes away our breath, the breath of life. What other examples are there where we have had our breath threatened? Smoking. The tobacco industry was exposed by the whistleblower as knowing ahead of time, before they started selling, that their product was going to not only be addictive, but harmful. And the biggest problem with smoking, whether secondhand or regular smoking, is that it causes lung cancer in vulnerable bodies, in vulnerable persons. And the DNA determines that. And so, yes, you can have God who can smoke on a regular basis and live to be 100. Oh God, Book 1, Oh God, Book 2. You don't remember that guy? Mormons should, because his foul mouth was in PG movies. And so that was one of the attacks on America, was through the tobacco industry, as they were purposely polluting the air and causing lung damage to Americans with the use of cigarette smoke. The car industry, likewise. The Ford Motor Company, there's the documentary about him where he had evolved past the combustion engine, made it environmentally friendly, but big business shut him down. And so we have the combustion engine, which has been obsolete for over 80 years, not just because Ford had come up with something better in the first place. But overall, it's been obsolete, and yet we're still using it, polluting the air. And Utah also has been a big part of that. When they started developing down in Lehigh and those areas, and moving the prison to the airport area, they were trying to figure out how to do it, and people were saying, hey, let's keep up with the technologies and make this place environmentally friendly. We already have the worst air quality in the world in certain spots at certain times of the year. Why don't we, try to do mass transportation and all that? And so reluctantly they did UTA, but they still decided to expand the I-15 rather than mass transit. That's Utah. They're purposely involved in our murder. And they call it a hoax, conspiracy theory, and all this nonsense to deceive us. And so, anti-vaccinations. Remember the anti-vaxxers? Who do you think spread that? Somebody who wanted to destroy America. They were setting us up. And so dumb mothers throughout the nation were joining this anti-vaxxer movement. Vaccines will not replace us. And so, yeah, what was a natural consequence of not vaccinating your kids? Measles outbreak. We had conquered measles. With the shots, vaccines that we were getting as babies, we had conquered measles, but because of the attack of the anti-vaccination movement, measles came back. And yet we still have them lingering, but then we had false flag operations, mixed with real operations, mixed with real scenarios, and that was causing confusion. Which event is a legitimate event? Which one was staged by our government? Which one was staged by our government to be a hoax? We were purposely being deceived in the news. So was Sandy Hook real? Or was Las Vegas real? We don't know, because they're suppressing the information that was going on there. People have cell phones now. We can identify through the use of social media. However, social media clamps down, shuts them all down, and we get censored on what really happened. And then we're left to the major news organizations who then say, oh, it was real, oh, this is a great tragedy, we need to ban bump stock. What? Oh my God, one individual, and you want to ban all bump stock, as if that's going to solve the problem? And the kids down in Florida who have a real shooting because of a student, and then they think, oh, okay, they're protesting, how dare they, we're the government, they need to obey us. And so they pretend that they cared and said, okay, you kids who are under 18, you're no longer going to be able to buy a weapon at 18. You now have to wait until you're 21 to buy the weapon, let alone the guy got it from his daddy anyway. It doesn't solve the problem, it just punishes the victims who were protesting, and they all fell for it. And so now with the coronavirus, it's a hoax. It'll be gone by summer, etc., etc. Oh, we're green. And you do understand Utah's red now. The White House came out with a report saying Utah is red. That's how much Governor Herbert and Russell M. Nelson have deceived us. And so that helps confirm that the church is involved in the destruction of America so that they can have their Deseret. two. Two as in two, the number, rather than two as in TOO. But it's horrendous to see so many traitors in America. They set us up big time, so that these Mormon women against masks movement, I hope you're ignorant, because you're complicit. You're being deceived to kill your kids, just like the anti-vaxxers. And it's heartbreaking to see mothers hate their children so much, being so deceived and brainwashed that they can't step out of the box and say, wait a minute, this virus is killing people. Grandma died from it. Uncle Bill died from it. You know, do I really want my kid to die from it? Kids get it too. Young people also get it. Everybody gets it. Doesn't matter your race, doesn't matter the sex, doesn't matter your age. Everybody is getting it. Even some animals are getting it. And the bubonic plague is in Colorado with squirrels. We are systematically being genocidally murdered. And yet we're arguing against each other in America rather than saying, hey government, you're killing us. Stop it. We will not let you replace us. You know, white supremacist slogan? It's misguided. You're looking for the deep state, but who's in charge? Trump's in charge. The deep state's gone. And so if the deep state still exists, who's in charge of the deep state? Trump's in charge of the deep state. It's just, you have QAnon, who gets people so brainwashed that truth is no longer true. And they go to their dying breath saying the lies and the hate. And the people that promoted this, who caused this, they're just laughing hysterically at all the dumb Americans. And so, I don't know, do you want to be dumb? We're the humiliation of the world. We are the laughing stock. People are banning us from their countries. And you want to argue amongst ourselves? Oregon was raided by the feds. Maybe. They may have been fakes. Just regular people going in military gear with military weapons. And they were just locking people up. No Miranda rights, no cause, no reason, just locking them up in Oregon. And the police, they didn't do anything. You got people, unknown people, locking citizens up, and you're not doing anything about it? You're just sitting back going, oh, we don't know who these guys are. I don't know. Maybe they're feds. I don't know. Oh my God. You know, they're setting us up for martial law. Trump tried it. He failed. He's trying another approach now. He's going to get what he wants because nobody is stopping him. And Herbert is doing whatever he wants because the church tells him to. The church says, we will only open in accordance with the local leaders of the government. They're responsible for whether we open as a church. Oh, I thought it was the coronavirus that determined it. So, Herbert, we're green, good to go. The White House came out yesterday, Utah's red. We're not orange, as the guy that is temporarily filling in for Percy while the lawsuit commences. And not yellow. We're red. We're supposed to be in full lockdown. Oh, it's going to take away our agency. Yes, And who's responsible for taking away your agency? Nelson and Herbert. And Trump. Your focus is off. You're not paying attention to the game that they're playing. And as a result, you're dropping the ball. And they're laughing at you. Keep your eye on the ball.